Welcome, councillors, and the meeting is being recorded and is also live streamed, and it will be available to view on the council YouTube channel. I think everybody here knows the health and safety and the evacuation procedures. So I will start with a karakia. Feel free to join if you wish. Kia ora te mariano. Kia whakapapa.
Tēnā te moana, hei aurahi mā tātou I te rangi nei, tu parawa mai, tātou I a tātou katoa, ue te aki e.
Much. Now, we have no apologies. Are there any conflicts of interest? None. Any acknowledgements and tributes? None. There is, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'd actually just like to acknowledge the wrapping up of the Wairapa Recovery Office and all of the work that they've done with the South Wairarapa District Council and with Nigel in particular, helping to lead that from the South Wairarapa District Council end, and the work that they've done over the past 2 years, especially with helping us to ensure that we're in a great space if anything happens, or a better one. Let's say it won't be great, but it's much appreciated, and I'm sure everyone else feels the same.
Absolutely.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Anyone else? Okay, we have no public participation. I've not been informed of any urgent business. Any really late urgent business? No, it's not. So if we move to item 7 on my script, which is the confirmation of minutes, and if we can start with the minutes of 11 June, which are on page 7 of the agenda. Does anybody know of any corrections or alterations? Were your names spelled correctly and all that good stuff? Oh,
yeah, just one correction. I see in acknowledgements and tributes from the previous meeting where I acknowledged the passing of Bob Wilton of Featherston. I didn't state Featherston. I think Bob actually lived in Carlton. But if you could perhaps just amend Featherston.
any other comments? Right. Do I have someone to move that they are true and accurate? The Deputy Mayor, do we have a seconder? Thank you, Colin. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And if we could now move to the minutes of the public excluded meeting of 11 June, which, page 14 of the agenda. Does anybody have any corrections there? No. Do I have a mover to accept them? I do. Thank you, Rebecca. A seconder? Thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any matters arising from the previous minutes? If we move to item 9, reports from the Murray Standing Committee and the Community Board, I have been told that there are any. So, okay. So we'll come to decision reports from the Chief Executive and the staff. So we're moving on to item 10.1, which is the delegate policy and the registers update, page 20 in my agenda. And do I have a mover to accept the delegations policy and register report? We do. Woody seconds it. Any comments? Please say aye. Thank you. So can I hand over?
Also, this report?
What for?
Yes, usually can. Through the chair, this is a procedural report. I've been working with Jess on this for a little while. What we found when we looked at the previous delegations was that they were 2 individual positions. but there was no upwards cascade of roles, which meant if that person was away, we couldn't go up the tree for approvals. So this is a procedural position to put those upwards cascades in to ensure that we've always got a one-up approval for various legislation. And you'll see in the document, there's a lot of legislation that we have to comply with.
I was kidding.
Just one or two things.
Right, so are there any questions of detail or?
Seems very sensible and
Certainly.
very straightforward.
Yeah, I'd hate to think of things being left behind because someone's on leave for 4 weeks or, you know, like taking their leave or, you know, and not being able to do anything.
Is we would have a sub-delegation in place. So if I'm away, then I sub-delegate to one of my GMs. But this is more if it's a sudden illness or something that's not expected. Then we can't function if we don't have these delegations.
Okay. You're getting off the hook, Jess, so that's good. So that being the case, do I have a mover to approve the amended delegation register for legislative delegations? I do, and councillor Elam seconds it. Any comments? Okay, then all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. Seeing none, that's carried. We now come to item 10.2, which is the fees and charges report. And Nikki, you're going to take us through this. Thank you very much. So the fees and charges report is on page 88. Do I have a mover to accept the report, please? I do. Councillor Bosley, seconded. Councillor Gray, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, there being none, the report is accepted. Nikki, over to you.
Chair, through you, I will take the paper as read. Just a quick overview that the fees and charges have been part of the LTP process and came through the Strategy Working Committee as part of the supporting documentation for the LTP consultation. They were included in the consultation. The fees and charges before you today are the same as we met with consultation, with the exception of the dog control fees, which came to the Strategy Working Committee on 30 April. The decisions made from that meeting have been included in the final fees and charges, which are before you today. So we are looking for adoption for those starting 1 July 2025 for the year ahead.
Let's open up.
Just-
Thank you.
Just to clarify, what you're saying, Nikki, is that this is actually just the very final tick of approval on a topic that has been through consultation and actual several rounds of decision making at this table prior to now.
Correct. Through year, the council must adopt fees and charges for the year ahead. And this is the final step in that process. So this is fees and charges for 2025/2026.
Thanks, Melissa. Any other comments or questions? Okay, do we have a mover to approve recommendations on the report? We do. Thank you, Councillor Gray. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bosley. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
You. And now we're going to move on to the adoption of the rating policies, which are on page 1 to 3, I believe. And purpose of this, and as part of the long-term plan requirements, the revenue and financing policy, the emission rates policy, emission postponements of rates on Maori landhold policy need to be adopted. Do I have a mover to accept the report? Thank you, Councillor Grace. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Olds. All in favour? Please say aye. Thank you very much. Okay, who wants to talk to us about this?
Thank you, Chair. This is one of my passion projects. I will take the policies as read, but I will just summarise why we're here and what changes have happened to these policies. So part of our consultation was some more refinements to the rating policies that we've been working on for the last, I think, 3 years now. And those were whether to change the target for our uniform rates to 28% or keep them at 21%. And through consultation and deliberations, the indication was to keep them at 21%. The second question was whether to put in a targeted rate for town centre facilities so that people within 10 kilometres were paying more for those facilities. And through deliberations and consultation, that was rejected. And there were other minor changes. So the change to the SUIP definition, to make it clearer what's excluded rather than including everything in a wide net and then having remissions. And that consequently means that the remission policy has dropped all of those remissions that are no longer needed because they're exclusions now. So we also changed the refuse and recycling to be per rating unit with an optional additional bin rate that people can request. And that was it, yeah. So all of those changes and suggestions and deliberation directions have been incorporated into these updated financing remission and remission on Murray freehold land policies. That last one didn't actually change. So this is in effect, again, the last stage of a long process that we've been through, consulted on quite widely, had a lot of interest in during the consultation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to talk a little bit about around the table. You've all heard what I'm going to say, but I want to say so that people out there understand that when we're talking about the UAGC at 21% or 28%, and we went out to get public feedback. Everybody around this table knows I voted for 28%. That's fine. But we had a lot of discussion around this table, and there was a lot of argument, argy-bargy from the community about whether the 600 submissions were or were not. And I know that everybody around this table read those 600 submissions, and even though there was advice from officers that may be contradictory to what we as councillors may well have thought about it, I know that everybody around this table read them and took account of those comments when each and every one of us made our decision. That debate occurred 2 weeks ago? 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had the vote on it. 14, sorry, yeah. But, you know, the thing about democracy is you don't always win the argument that you've got. But this table is a table that we can have robust conversation. And yes, I lost that argument on this thing, but as a collective responsibility as a council, when we've made a decision, we all have to actually adopt that decision in public. And so for people out there who are watching, there was robust debate about this, about whether it was 21% or 28%. The council, me included, came to a decision that it would stick at 21%. We've had that debate. We have to now move on. And for that reason, I'm going to vote for this. Not that I like it, but because we've had the debate and I lost the argument. And under the terms of collective responsibility as a council, we have to accept that we don't always win the argument around the table and move on. So that's why I'm voting.
I think just reflecting on the process that we've been through to get here, and it has been long, given that last year we deferred our LTP and went with the enhanced annual plan option instead. We have easily been working on these policies, documents and the LTP for at least 18 months, probably longer. And we have done extensive consultation with our community. And despite some comments a fortnight ago, that consultation was done in good faith. And regardless of how that feedback was received, whether it was through the formal submission process, whether it was conversations in person at various events or just out in general in our day-to-day life in the community or by formed letter. All of that input has been taken on board to form the information that we have to make our decisions. And as Alistair says, those decisions might not always find favour with everybody, but they are made to the best of our ability, with the best information we have, and with the absolute best interests of our community at heart. And not all decisions will align with the number of submissions we receive. And that is because that is consultation, not a referendum. But I truly believe that that good decision making has been achieved throughout this process to date. And I too will be voting in favour of these rating policies before us today.
Councillor Evans.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor Martin, it's certainly been an interest, again, with this consultation, this LTP process, it's been an interesting journey for us to take. I've certainly enjoyed getting out and having those conversations and being part of those events, getting amongst our residents and ratepayers and talking to them about the plan, what our proposals were going forward, etc., and the different options. I certainly agree with other councillors about some of the matters which, well, have been divisive. I think every LTP or AP, there are topics of conversation which don't sit well with some parts of our community. However, I think we just need to take, and I think we are taking it in mind that we are here for the benefit of the whole district as opposed to the benefit of some of the district. And I just, going back to some of the papers that were tabled back on the 14th of May, there was an appendix there attached to one of the agendas, or attached to the agenda, which talked about that UAGC and the difference between 28% and 21%. And for me, that was telling that under that 28%, if we'd increase the UAGC to 28%, there'd be 2,291 rateable properties in the district, which would benefit by having a higher UAGC of 28%, while there would be 5,119 properties benefit if we kept that UAGC 21%. So I think certainly agree with Councillor Plummer that while we might have our own individual opinions and ideas, and we might disagree with a position or a paper which is brought to us and we might vote against it, we're here to consider the whole, the benefit for the whole district. Thanks, Mayor Martin.
Thanks, Mayor Martin. Just a couple of comments. One is that I certainly like to congratulate the staff for the efforts that have gone into this, and congratulate our councillors around the table for their time and commitment and getting us to where we are today. This document will be reviewed in 2 years' time again, and we live in pretty uncertain times in the world at the moment, and it'd be interesting in 2 years' time to see how things have changed in terms of the layout of the document as well. I mean, who knows, we might be in a crisis where we have to bring back hitching rails and tell them to tie up the horses because there's no fuel for the motor cars, no energy.
Councillor Gray's in your corner on that one.
These are uncertain times, and we can only work with what we've currently have in the way of information. One of the things I'm really delighted about is the fact that we've identified local work's done well throughout this process and adjusted our long-term plan accordingly, 13 points. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. I saw James taking a little note to check the supply of hitching rails.
Hitching rails.
Does it go up?
Well, we need somebody to pick up
Outside the museum, is it?
Yes, well, I certainly pick up the points that both of you have made about the conflict possibly that we have between trying to do what's best for the community as a whole versus being confronted with particular groups of quite narrow interests sometimes that can be quite insistent that their viewpoints should take precedence over that wider community. And that is a challenge, and it'll be a challenge for future decision makers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, this is something that we never take lightly because we know that it doesn't matter if it's a small group or a larger group. Everyone is talking from a point of there's not a lot to go around, and we're just trying our best to make our own ends meet. And every time we sit at this table, we know that. And that's part, you know, and we know that we're having to make some really hard decisions that aren't always going to benefit the whole community. And that is just a part of why we are here. And this final, you know, these final steps, it is something that we have to always have, you know, and have on our minds. And so we do the very best that we can with the information. And I think it's been really robust. The information that we've collated as well throughout our consultation. And I can't thank our staff enough for the amount of work that has gone into this. And so, yeah, I'm also going to be voting for this today because that's what we have to do here.
Yes, I think I also want to pick up that last point you made. It was made by Colin also that right throughout, I've had tremendous confidence in what Janice and her team have been doing. It's been very reassuring the whole way. So thank you, Chair and Janice. Thank you, all those other people who probably never even met. But,
Some of them I need to go.
yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's, I think we can possibly,
Can I speak, Martin, please? Come on.
oh, sorry, Woody, you go.
Yeah,
Oh,
thanks.
the,
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah. Firstly, thanks, Chair. Thanks to the staff for this, for putting all this together. I know there's a lot of work involved by everyone. Personally, I thought it was quite a few too many pages to read, but anyway. I got to read about others too this morning, so that's okay. I noticed here on page 16, but unfortunately I wasn't here in May when we voted on a lot of the stuff. Due to technical difficulties with technology, I couldn't even zoom in. I just noticed here on the 28% uniform charge thing, it's got 51% in favour and 49% in favour. Does that include the 600 petition signatures, form letters?
Which page are you on? So
16 on the document Charlie sent us the other day.
It wasn't a petition.
not on the body of the document.
Submissions
Oh, in the long.
isn't a submission.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think we need to be clear about the words we're using though. It
Yeah.
wasn't a petition, they were
Form letters. So, yeah.
I think that does.
The summary of the consultation summarises the submissions into the portal itself, but we did mention the 600 form letters and then discussion.
Yeah, it's just a shame that's not included in here because it looks like they weren't included when it's written that way. There's quite a few things in here. I noticed in 2028 when we're going to have a big jump in rates rise by the graph.
So then, Woody, I think you're looking at the long-term plan. We're still on the policies.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But you're welcome to.
No, I'll do it.
Yeah.
We will be.
Yeah,
We'll circle back.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Keep those notes.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that your diesel powered technology didn't quite work.
Yes.
Is Kay?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I just wanted to congratulate the staff on the amazing amount of not just the work, but the quality of the work that's gone into this long-term plan. But I've just never seen such a high quality long-term plan before, and with the analysis and everything that's gone into it, I just think it's tremendous. And I agree too that the point must be made that that there has been so much communication around this work, and that sometimes our decisions aren't exactly aligned with the submissions. And that, I think, is because the submissions don't represent a very large part of the community, and we have to take them very, very seriously, as we should. But also there's the communication that we have with, you know, hundreds of ratepayers, whether it's over a cup of coffee or when we're shopping at P&K and something like that. And all that has to go into the total outcome of it. And it's also follows that decisions can never make everyone happy, because we've got to make one decision, or sometimes several, but it's covering a large community with very different needs and requirements and wants. So we'd love to make everybody happy. Unfortunately, we can't. But again, just to thank the staff very much. It's just such a high quality piece of work, and I'm very proud to have had a very tiny part in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. No, completely endorse it. Can you keep an eye on Kay? I can't see her.
Haven't got eyes in the back of your head.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kay. That was greatly appreciated. Okay. Let's try approving recommendations 2, 3, 4, and 5 as a job lot. So recommendation 2, that we adopt revenue and finance policy contained in the final 25 to 34 LTP. Recommendation 3, that we adopt the remissions of rates policy contained in the final 25 to 34 LTP. Recommendation 4, that we adopt the remission and postponement of rates on Maori freehold land policy contained in the final 25 to 34 long-term plan. And recommendation 5, that we authorise the CE to approve any minor accuracy, grammatical, formatting amendments prior to the 2025-34 long-term plan being published. Do I have a mover, please? I do. Councillor Plover and Councillor Pip is seconding it. Doing a toss up there.
Favourites?
Oh, Councillor Alistair and Councillor.
There we go.
Any comments last? All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, that's carried. Thank you very much. And now, page 156, adoption of the long-term plan. So it's a bit like, you know, the old-fashioned movies. Once upon a time, you know, you went and you saw shorts at the start and you didn't like it, and then you had your ice cream, and then you came to the main event. This is the main event.
I remember those.
You remember that? I think you haven't been said. If you also remember, you couldn't actually eat the ice cream because they'd been frozen.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
For the Thora.
Until someone showed me one.
So I think we all know the basic, shall we say, background, which is that every 3 years, councils are required to produce a 10-year plan, long-term plan. We had a slight deferral, so we all know about that as well. So the first thing then is, do I have a mover to receive the adoption of the 25 to 34 long-term plan, please? I do. Councillor Elands, Councillor Alistair seconded it, and
I'm in the good books today.
I think
Yep, absolutely. As you said, we've been living this for 18 months at least now. I remember getting back from holiday last year and basically hit the ground running on that after we'd done the enhanced annual plan, which was effectively a runner towards a long-term plan and then a sort of sprint to one side. Yes, so what you have done just now in adopting your policies is the sort of direction of how council funds its activities. This is what those activities are. So you get a section on our services, what significant activities we deliver. Then you get how much those cost. And at the very end, we will set the rates after this. That will be the next report. So all of those things are like a cascade. You have to do them in that order in order to be able to set the rates at the end. Just to summarise, the main change that has happened since our consultation is that we have voted around the table to join Water Services CCO, WSCCO, with our 3 neighbouring councils, and therefore that enabled us to remove waters from our long-term plan. The transition will happen on 30 June 2027 is the plan. Therefore, from 1 July 2027, so the 27 to 28 year, you will not see anything in our long-term plan for waters. Believe me, we've checked. So that is the main difference. And that is also the main difference, although Karen will hopefully be able to join us, and I bet she's having technology problems at the moment. It's the main reason why we've been able to achieve an unmodified opinion on our long-term plan, whereas we had an adverse opinion on our consultation document. With waters in, council was not financially sustainable in the long term. Therefore, audit had to give us an adverse opinion. And we accepted that because at that time we weren't ready to take waters out. Now that we have got an unmodified opinion, and we've got what is called an emphasis of matter, which I know you ran the table, but for the benefit of people listening, it's basically a look at this thing in particular. This thing in particular is very significant and you need to pay some attention to it. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the long-term plan. It just means, hey, look at this thing over here. It's a big, important thing, which absolutely it is. As I've highlighted in the long-term plan deliberations, I mentioned the policies part, the rating part that we did earlier. The other main decisions were whether to increase the operating budget for waters, and at deliberations the indication was no, leave it just an inflationary adjustment. And the other main one was whether to continue to fund the shortfall of the loss of subsidy from low cost, low risk roading activities. Now at that time, the shortfall was 5.2 million over 3 years. So the year of the annual plan and the first 2 years of the long-term plan. And even at 5.2 million, the general indication around the table was, yes, these are important things for our district. There were things in there like the management of the roads around the Martinborough vineyards and things. And as we know, we had experience with that being unsafe recently. So the indication around the table was to keep funding it and to fund it through debt. Now, luckily, our roading team, Tim Langley in particular, have done a fantastic job of advocating for some of those projects to be funded. Has gone back, has applied and done more papers and used his connections in Waka Kotahi to find out how to get those approved. And we managed to get an extra just over $3 million of subsidy.
Oh, well done.
Which is a fantastic.
Fantastic.
So actually the borrowing that we'll need to do is much less than we were indicating in that consultation.
Huge.
And as it's spread over the 3 years, it doesn't have an immediate impact on rates anyway from the interest on the borrowing. As you know, we don't borrow until we've actually spent the money anyway. So we wait until we need to pay the suppliers for that until we borrow. So we hold off on borrowing as long as we can so that the interest cost doesn't hit the rate band. So that was an excellent outcome.
Fantastic.
That has been built into this long-term plan. The interest costs are less than they were going to be. Consultation. That's the main summary of the changes since consultation. Just a couple of things I want to highlight is that so the rates increase, total rates increase for 25-26 is 4.3% increase in revenue. As we know, that does not hit everyone the same way.
Yeah.
In fact, if you're not connected to waters and a lot of those targeted rates, you could even see a rates decrease. The examples in the LTP document are quite nicely spread. We don't just give like 3 houses, we give a cross-section of values of properties, cross-section of types of industry, types of farming even. We don't just go farm, we say a dairying, a horticulture, a forestry. So there are some good examples in there. And people can work out what their rates are going to be from looking at the funding impact statement for rates. You will notice that in the 27-8 year, which is the year after transition, we indicate a 15.4% increase in rates. Now that is because you have to compare the rates that you're left with after transition with the equivalent rates before transition. You have to ignore the water rates that are going to not be charged by us anymore after transition. So in terms of dollars, we're actually going to be getting $10 million less rates revenue after transition, which is 31% reduction. But the way that we have to show our rates increase, we have to show the adjusted rates increase, which is just in the non-waters rates. And that is a 15.4% increase for $3 million. Now, there's still a valid question, why $3 million increase in our non-water rates after transition? Now, there's 3 main reasons for that. The first is that we have corporate overheads that are currently spread across all of our activities, including waters. So the cost of running council, not yourselves, but like the building that we occupy is near to, the CE team, the executive team, the finance team, the communications team, the rates administration runs. All of those things cost council money, but you don't directly send out every ratepayer an invoice for them. So the way we fund those is to charge all the other activities that you do send out a rates charge for, an overhead. Those overheads can't be charged to the water activities after they transition. So the $1 million of overheads that are charged to the water activities prior to transition have to be allocated to the other activities after. So all of a sudden, those activities are getting $1 million increase. So that's a third of our $3 million increase. 1.3 million is in roading alone. And that is a combination of the loss of the special purpose road classification on Cape Palliser. So we still have the cost of operating Cape Palliser Road, but we're only getting an assumed 51% if they keep the rate there of subsidy instead of 100% subsidy. So we have to pick up the rest of that. And then there's also a renegotiating of the Rimahanga Roads contract that year. So there is an assumption that the supplier will want to catch up on the years of inflation that they have not been able to catch up on because we're in a contracted fees section at the moment. So that's 1.3 million. So we're sort of almost 2.5 million of that 3 million we've explained. We also have some significant capital programs in 26-27, the year before transition, which we will of course borrow to fund, and therefore the interest costs of that increase. And the other significant changes in insurance is constantly getting higher. And again, the more capital assets you have, the higher your insurance costs. So interest and insurance combined is another 0.4 million. So there's your 3 million of increase in other rates.
Charlie, just on that topic of the 15.3% rise that year, can you just, obviously that is at the moment that's predicted, it's not set in stone, but but it's also very technical. We've had this conversation several times to try and understand it. Anyone watching or anyone reading about it in the paper won't have had that benefit. Can you talk a little bit about the potential real world effect for a ratepayer, what that will, obviously not what the percentage will look like for them, but what the effect on rates actually looks like?
I mean, overall, all I can comment is that the total rates that will be required that year go up by 15%. Now, because water is more of a, it's a targeted rate only charged to the customers who have access to it. It's mainly in the general and of course the roading that people will see an increase in, and those are rated to everyone in the district with a rateable property. So it will be much more of an even spread, that 15% increase. And I also like to remind you, as you say, not set in stone. I mean, if we just went every year of this long-term plan and did exactly as it said, that's what the rates increase would be. We have an annual plan next year, and more importantly, we have a long-term plan 27 to 37 to get to. Now, where I've said there's $1 million of overheads that currently are being charged and have to move from waters to other rates, we will be looking at our organisation and what it looks like post waters over the next 2 years, and that number may come down. We don't know what efficiency savings we're going to be able to make when we don't have waters anymore. We don't know what that's going to look like, but we sure as hell will be looking at that over the next 2 years.
It's a little bit of crystal ball gazing at this point, because post transition there is still a level of uncertainty around what council world will look like. The world will look like, but what it will look like. Sure.
Just before we open up to general discussion, and I'm going to go back to Councillor Woodcock first, because he had started the conversation on this paper, and then I've got Councillor Bosley now next. But
Actually, I'm okay now. I'm fine.
All right.
I'm fine. Don't worry about me.
oh, okay. But I just wondered, because I personally haven't read the audit report, what is the matter of?
Certainly. So the matter of emphasis is regarding just transition. Yes, sorry, I have got it printed here. So the emphasis of matter, I will quote. Without modifying our opinion, we draw attention to page 5, which outlines that the council has consulted on a future delivery model for water services and is planning to establish a jointly owned council-controlled organisation with Masterton, Carterton and Tararua District Councils from 1 July 2027. The plan reflects these decisions. There is some uncertainty as the proposal is yet to be accepted by the Secretary for Local Government. There is also uncertainty about the financial impact of the decision because details of the exact arrangements are still being considered. So that's the end of the quote, but essentially we're early on in the plan, so we can't have put any very specific things in our long-term plan at the moment.
So I don't think we would disagree with any of that.
No, yeah.
So I had a conversation with our auditor last night, and it was quite a long conversation, but amongst the other things we covered was expression of congratulations to Janice and her staff on the excellent work that was put into the final long-term plan. So I don't know how often one gets well done's from auditors, but this is certainly one of those. Councillor Woodcock.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I was mentioned about the uniform charges. I'd also just like to state, I've got to state before that Aidan said about how it would have affected a certain amount of properties each way. I still don't think the uniform charges is a fair system, the way it's set up at the moment, and I'd challenge future councils to look into that a little bit harder. The main issue, one thing I've got looking at long-term plan, like I said, awesome document, probably too long for me. In 2028, when we have that big rates rise, I've also noticed in that year, we've actually got some more big capital projects like 1.9 million for playgrounds, which I actually thought in a workshop we said we were going to take out, but maybe I've got that wrong a while ago, or shift.
Push back, not mate.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if that's the ideal year to be spending that amount of money on playgrounds when you've already got large rates rises coming through. Because also at the same year, you've got the Greydown campground, which is quite a large amount of money. And I know the campground probably needs it because it's been left for far too long, but whether that could be spread over different years to try and reduce that spike in rates, because although I know, like Charlie said, it's only an increase on the amount without waters. What people forget is the waters bill people are going to get that year is going to jump up a hell of a lot as well. So that's going to make the rates rise technically a lot more than that even, which a lot of people are going to struggle with. I also noticed page 66, the speed review's down for $437,000. Does it actually cost that much when we've already done a lot of work previous? Already sort of done, you would think a lot of the work would have been done.
Through the chair, I think there are some issues around lights required at schools that we would need to put in, because that's the one part of the rule that we can't consult on. We're instructed to do that.
Yep.
So that will be to cover those.
All those costs as well. It's not just the actual review on its own. Oh, yeah, no, that's cool. That wasn't clear.
The things around the speed limit around schools is an actual thing you have to do.
Yeah. And page 79, it's got $934,000 for wellfield security. What's wellfield security?
That is making sure that you're not relying on one for the water supply for a town.
Right.
So that has actually been in our long-term plan for quite a considerable amount of
Yeah,
time.
it's just
And has been pushed back and deprioritised for other things. Yeah.
it's just got a funny name that makes it not understand what it really is. Yeah, no, that's cool. Page 89, wastewater figures. Are these all set off Wellington Water's numbers or revised numbers of Wellington Water's estimates on jobs?
These are set from Wellington Waters. We will be, as we're taking over control of our capital program, obviously challenging the figures and quotes we get from suppliers and looking for any savings able to be made.
Cool, Charlie.
Not, yeah.
Would it be fair to say we could only build those budgets based on the numbers we had to hand,
Yeah.
not what they will be at the time?
Just for people out there, your operating surplus over the long-term plans between basically 2 and 4.7 million every year. What does that go into and what is it used for?
Really good question. Let me just get to the surplus area. Right. So operating surplus, first of all, it includes some revenue that goes into capital programs. So we are not able to use that for funding our day-to-day operations. So you have the capital part of the Waka Kotahi subsidy that goes to fund the part of the capital program for road. You also have the contributions. So if you look at that, that's it's roughly about 1.5, sometimes as low as 1.1 million some years. Again, that goes straight into two reserves, the green space reserve and the infrastructure reserve, and funds part of the capital programs we do in green spaces and roading, water and wastewater growth projects. So immediately you're losing sort of probably about half of that Waka Kotahi subsidy each year is for capital, and all of the contributions is for, again, capital program. So where you've got sort of a 2.2, 2.3 operating surplus, realistically, we are funding ever so slightly less of what we need for our day-to-day operations in some years. And you remember that we did that smoothing of our operating projects. That's where that comes into perspective as well, because we're not receiving all of the income from our projects every year. We're receiving a fixed amount every year, and then the activity goes up and down, usually up at the beginning and down towards the end of the program. So that operating surplus, most definitely not cash.
So for instance, the Grey Down Green Space, it's in the LTP, that's where that money will come out of.
So when we have a green space project, it's first funded by any reserve contributions that have been kept for that, and then anything less after that is loans. So yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Cash flow, but obviously we've received cash in for the green space.
Just go through the chair. The way these statements are presented is regulated. And what you're seeing there is a mixture of capital income and operational income. So generally the capital will, what we call, fall through, and that's why you see a surplus.
Yeah, I know. It does become quite confusing when you get with the way it's regulated.
Our whole life trying to explain to the public that whilst you see it as a surplus, it doesn't mean that we're overrating you as the ratepayer. We have to include all of our income in this statement, and then it gets confusing because it doesn't get spent on operational things, it gets spent on capital. That is very confusing to try and explain to the layperson, because their view is, well, why put it in there, just take it out, and we actually can't under accounting standards.
And that's one of the reasons I asked this question, because I've been getting asked by people and I knew it comes a lot better from you guys than it does from me. There was one thing on page, I'm on the right document here, no, I'm not in there. Page 212, which confused me a bit. Confused the right word, but see, there's far too many pages.
About projects?
It was something about wastewater, yep. Off what he might be 213. It was to do with the dates. But it is here. A joint comprehensive study of Martinborough Grey Down wastewater is underway, covering compliance. It's expected to be completed on March 25th or March 25th long gone.
So is that the growth? That's the growth study, I think, that Wellington Water was going to be providing to council.
Of the infrastructure program. We can come back to another meeting, or just come back to you as to the timing of that project now.
Yeah, just sort of confusing with the past date and a LTP for the future, sort of. Yeah, no, it's cool. Thanks very much, guys.
No, just do a double check, councillor Bosley, you're okay?
Actually fine.
Councillor Bosley.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make a couple of comments. Firstly, staff, thank you very much for the work you've done, and that's all the staff sitting behind there. This is a pretty big achievement. When I look back over the 6 years sitting around this table, one of the truisms that comes to mind is that no plan supplies first contact with the enemy. And in this case, the enemy is not people, it's the environment, it's central government, it's nature. And when I look back over the last two plans, the first one we did during the period of COVID. Well, nobody foresaw that. Then we had Three Waters on, then we had a national election, Three Waters off. This plan is probably going to go through the same issue. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone today. So, you know, when putting your 15% increase in rates, that's our best guess. I promise you, it's not going to be that. Nothing is certain. Nothing is more certain than it won't be that. And, you know, we talk about not needing to do an annual plan if the situation doesn't change. Well, Colin, how many annual plans have you done on the 9 years you've been here? So that suggests that the plan changes almost every year. So whilst it is our best effort and our best guess, the other truism I say is you can't please all the people all the time. That's a real given around this game. They say you can please some people some of the time, but after 6 years, that is getting less and less true as well. Because as we go down this track and as costs increase and so on, it does affect people more and more and more. And we know that. So we have to be more innovative about how we do it. But also some people have to actually sort of say, well, how do I manage this in my life and these costs that are going forward? And I know our staff have a whole lot of options for ratepayers to pay rates and so on and so forth. So we need to perhaps stop thinking how we used to do things 20 years ago and actually say, how do we as individuals pay our rates into the future, knowing that we still need water and we still need roads and we still need all these other things, and those costs are not going to go down. Nothing is true. Rates are not going to get cheaper next year. They never will. But we need to understand that. We need to help our public look at the different options there are to pay these fees and rates as we go forward. But look, I commend everybody to this plan. We don't always get what, there's things in here I don't like, and there's things in here I really do like. And I'm sure everybody around the table says that. This is a plan, the best guess after how many months have we been going around the table on this? This is what democracy is. It's compromise. It's give and take in areas. So I commend this plan. As I said, not everything I like, but that's the way these things work. And Janice, to you and your team, thank you very much. Charlie, well done. Baptism by fire. So congratulations. So I'm certainly going to be voting for it.
Hey, and then
Thanks, Mayor Martin. I'd just reiterate the appreciation and thanks to the staff. Thanks, Charlie, for making time earlier this week. I couldn't make the meeting last week, so Charlie was able to give me some time so I could sit down and just go over the documents and the lead up to today. So that was much appreciated. Certainly answered some of the questions that I had. Also like to thank Tim and Stefan and the roading team. Certainly after that last general election, when we lost that low cost, low risk funding, that had an effect on the roading budget for the district, which Tim had approved out of NZTA prior to that election. I can distinctly remember sitting in the workshop that we had here and we were discussing the capital projects, and my view was that to keep rates low for the benefit of our ratepayers, it was a balancing act. And I distinctly remember, I was suggesting that we get rid of or we defer some of those CapEx projects around the roading in the roading space to reduce rates. However, I'm real appreciative of Tim's efforts and the contacts he's got at NZTA to be able to get $3 million out of them so that we can continue with those projects, and also for Janice and the rest of the team for looking into the option of us carrying out and replacing that low cost, low risk funding with loan funding. And so certainly been appreciative now that council is only going to need to borrow around 2.2 million or whatever to carry out the rest of those projects. And certainly there are projects which are going to benefit the South Wairarapa rural ratepayers under that roading funding. I'd also like to, the staff have heard the feedback from residents around cycleways and pedestrian ways around the vineyards, and to see that over a 3-year period, these over 200k has been earmarked to go into projects in that space. So thanks very much to Tim for forecasting and planning that. But yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Huge amount of work, a lot of extra time possibly some sleepless nights for Charlie and Janice to try and pull all this stuff together and think outside the square and come to a solution on how we can get a huge amount of work done for to benefit our ratepayers, but also in a time that it's that there are other financial pressures on the residents.
This has been such a big long-term plan to put through, and probably one of the hardest parts as well on council is the fact that we had local waters done well coming through at a very similar time. And I don't know how many of our ratepayers actually understand that the whole reason we needed to go out with that adverse audit, it was just because we had not yet finished consultation on local waters done well. And so we would have been absolutely not the opposite of transparent if we had tried to remove it from out of our long-term plan consultation at that time. And so, hats off to everybody here as well at the council table. They had the guts to actually say, yes, we're going to put out a consultation document that at this time has an adverse audit rating because we have not finished what we need to do with our local auditors to make those decisions, because we need to hear from our ratepayers on that separately. And so being able to actually come back now, have a great, our auditors thanking staff on the work that they've done for this long-term plan, that to me has always stuck better than a lot of the other work that we've had to do. But it's been a really big project, and yeah, hats off to the staff again. I'm just very, very grateful for all of the work that you've done and all of the work that everybody has actually come to the party and done here at the council table too. So yeah, that's just my thoughts there.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we've just about got to the voting point. It's like when the hero comes in at the last part of the movie and gets you to the end almost. But I'll just share with you that there are people watching online. One of them texted me to say that if you do have to put up pitching posts, I know where there are some suitable drinking holes for the horses, so get back in touch. Never mind.
Meeting time.
So, recommendation 2, note that the long-term plan has been prepared based on recommendations of the Strategy Working Committee deliberations meeting on the 14th of May 2025, the Strategy Working Committee meeting on the 4th of June 25. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Gray, Councillor Holds. Any comments, questions? All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Recommendation 3, that council adopts the significance and engagement policy in accordance with section 76AA of the Local Government Act 2002, as included in the final draft of the 25 to 34 long-term plan. Do I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Gray. Elam seconding. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Recommendation 4, adopts the financial strategy and infrastructure strategy in accordance with the requirements of sections 101A, 101B of the Local Government Act 2002, as included in the final draft of the 2025-34 long-term plan. Councillor Plummer, Councillor Maynard, all in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Recommendation 5, that council adopts the financial contributions policy, having undertaken consultation in accordance with sections 82 and 82A and pursuant to sections 102, 103, 106 of the Local Government Act 2002 and as included in the 2025-34 long-term plan. I have a mover, please. I do. Councillor Gray, Councillor Maynard seconding. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Recommendation 6, the council adopts as its 2025 to 34 long-term plan, having undertaken consultation in accordance with the special consultative procedure and in accordance with sections 93, 93A of the Local Government Act. Do I have a mover? I do. Councillor Gray, Councillor Maynard. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes,
Aye.
that's carried. Recommendation 7, the council approves carryover of unspent capital budget from the 2024-25 financial year to the 2025-26 financial year if there are further delays to the capital program beyond those already accounted for in the 25-34 long-term plan. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Melissa. Seconded, Councillor Gray. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried. The pro forma recommendation 8, that we delegate authority to the Chief Executive to approve minor editorial changes that do not change the intent of the content as part of the publication process. Councillor Gray moving, Councillor Melissa seconding, and all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. And lastly, note that the 25 to 34 long-term plan will be published within 1 month of its adoption in accordance with section 93 of the Local Government Act 2002. Councillor Gray moving, Councillor Mosley seconding. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, that's carried. Thank you very much. That's a long-term plan out the way for another 10 years. Oh, I mean, sorry.
No, not number 2.
Another 2.
It's not a big-
Okay. So. So the next item is 10.5. It's on page 161. It's entitled Setting of Rates, Due Dates and Penalties for 2025 to 26. Is the heading really meant to be a numerical too? Just
No,
that dash,
no.
do you think?
That should be 0.
Right,
25
to 26.
26 should be a switch, so if we can correct it.
Right. So do I have a mover to receive the report, please? Councillor Old, a second. Councillor Gray, all in favour of receiving the setting of rates, due dates and penalties, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Back to someone on my left.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you've now said, adopted the policies and the budgets for the next financial period, we have to therefore set the rates for the next financial year and the dates that those are due by and penalty details. So this is a report that you see every year, and this is the actual document that the rates for next year hang on. So it is very not fascinating, but again has been part of the audit process and reviews. Any questions?
This is possibly what most people are most interested in.
Yeah.
Mostly.
So going back to your cinema analogy, this could be that little thing after the credits that everyone hangs around for in the superhero movies these days.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
I'm just curious, is it always just, the day after the due date is when you'll be charged the penalty directly the day after?
So this is the date that we can charge the penalties. In reality, we usually wait a few days to see if more payments come in, but yeah.
So, there's no leeway for weekends or, if it falls on a,
We have 7-day maintenance law, but we do usually wait a few days. Because if people were paid sort of the day after, it's more work for us to charge a penalty and then reverse.
yeah. That's what I was thinking. Thinking days, so much. Perfect, thank you.
And any. Just compared to.
They're more of an encouragement for people to pay on time and a discouragement for people who don't want to pay at all than a stick to hit people when they're struggling. We, as you know, set up payment plans for people who are struggling to pay for their rates at a certain time, and those stop penalties going on. So we pause any penalties for people on the payment plan.
That's good to know.
Mm.
Through the chair, I would always encourage anyone who isn't paying on the quarter dates to contact us and get onto a payment plan.
Okay, so the meat of this particular paper is recommendation 2. I'm going to take it that everyone has read. I don't propose to read it out. But what we're about to do is to vote that in accordance with section 23 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002, Council sets the rates as described in the paper below for the rating year starting 1 July 2025, ending on 30 June 2026. And I'm assuming people have read it, those bits that they are intrigued about. So do I have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Gray, Councillor Holt seconding it. Any discussion? Yes.
No, fine, me, Martin, I was putting my hand up.
Right, thank you, appreciate
I
it.
was slow off the mark.
Yeah. Would have been awkward if we didn't get a second at this stage, wouldn't it? Anyway, okay, there is being no comment. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. No. Being no, I think that's accepted unanimously. So thank you very much. Yes. So unless there's any late additions to the order paper that we missed, let's move to the Karakia Whakamatua. Kua motu amahi.
O tēnei wā. Kato,
O mātou whanu, I'll
ki te ole.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Well done.